It's storming right now as I write this. Perhaps that's setting the tone for what we are going to talk about. When Samuel cried out to the Lord in 1 Samuel 12:18, the Lord sent thunder. When Moses stretched his staff to the sky in Exodus 9:23, the Lord sent thunder. So maybe it's just as well he sends his thunder along with my words tonight. There's two things I want you to remember from this letter. The first is this: darkness hides in plain sight. It is right in front of you. It very rarely openly presents itself as evil. It wraps itself in situations that look ordinary, look socially acceptable, or ones that you are conditioned to never question. Take the case of the 38-year-old man recently found captive in Waterbury, Connecticut. He had been missing for 2 decades, but he was never gone. He endured near total confinement without heat, limited food and water. No teachers, no friends, no authorities, no system saw him. He had to literally destroy his prison, and that's when the truth came out. In body cam footage, you can see his stepmother initially just say that she was looking for 2 pets that she had left inside the house. And then later, you can hear her say that her stepson was in there. She denied locking him in the room, stating he was stuck in the room due to flames, stated that he could come and go freely, but this was a lie, as the nation would soon come to see. And that's exactly how evil hides. Right in front of us, disguised by lies, covered by silence, protected by systems that don't ask questions. How many walked past that house? How many wondered, whatever happened to that boy? And then just moved on. That's how hidden abuse works. This is why I write this letter to you. My story isn't just about divorce. It's about how someone can take what is most precious to you, right in plain sight, and use silence, systems, and even people to make it possible. And here's the second thing I want you to remember. Justice only comes when what's done in the dark is brought into the light. And sometimes that means cracking something wide open until all that is left is truth. As painful as it may look and sound, but the raw, undeniable, and unfiltered truth. I speak now because silence has never protected a single child. But silence isn't the only problem. Sometimes it's the way we have normalized the wrong things, the way we look at abuse in the face and call it something else. We minimize it, excuse it, wrap it in language that sounds reasonable, even loving. And so, what should alarm us doesn't. What should break us doesn't. What should make us rise up instead makes us settle down. And slowly, without realizing it, we start calling dysfunction normal. We start calling control love. We start calling harm a hard season. And this is where we begin. We call it normal when a man locks his family out of the house, saying, well, did you make him mad? Or maybe he just needed space. We call it normal when he refuses to talk about what happened, shuts down, or walks away, saying, men don't like drama. They don't know how to use their words. We call it normal when a woman cries for help and everyone looks away, saying, it's not our business. We call it normal when a mother is silenced, accused of overreacting, or labeled as crazy for protecting her child. We call it normal when the court calls an abuser a good father because he pays child support and smiles in public. We call it normal when churches stay quiet because they don't want to get involved in quote-unquote domestic matters. We call it normal when survivors are told to forgive before they've even been allowed to speak. We normalize the demonic. We dress it up in suits and sermons. We call it order. We call it discipline. But what we're really doing is calling darkness light. Because if we face the truth, it would break everything we've built. And that's exactly what people like this count on. They've existed across time. They perfect the mask. They do all the right things. They smile at the right people, show up at the right places, and say just the right words like, let kids be kids. But what they really mean is, let them be seen and not heard, chastised and not empowered, manipulated and not set free. They will say things like, I'm not even going to respond, because they can't, not without exposing themselves. So instead, they smear. They spin lies, they plant stories, hoping to raise themselves by dragging someone else down. And the problem is that sometimes it works. Sometimes the lie is easier to digest than the truth. Because we've been trained, conditioned to trust the performance. We've been taught to believe the image, not investigate the fruit. And that's exactly what the enemy exploits. One of the latest Netflix films, Trap, captures this manipulation beautifully. So, spoiler alert. In the film, we meet a man who seems harmless, charming, helpful, present. He's a girl dad, taking his daughter to a concert. He's friendly with the merch guy, polite to the security guards, supportive of the staff. He even helps the medics backstage. To each person, he shows a different face. The sweet father, the curious fan, the clueless bystander. He adjusts and adapts so easily that no one suspects a thing. But underneath the mask, he's a serial killer, a butcher, a man who's keeping another human being tied up and tortured in a basement somewhere. And here's the most terrifying part. He's not hiding in the shadows. He's hiding in plain sight. He's right there on the stage. He's helping backstage, smiling, blending into the spotlight. That's how abusers move. They don't always sneak in. They walk right in. They join the team. They marry into the family. They collaborate with people of light, hoping your goodness will cover their darkness. And people assume, well, if they're on stage, they must be safe. If they're involved, they must be trustworthy. If they're charming, they must be good. If he got the kids, there must be a reason. But evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it laughs with you. Sometimes it wears the face of a father, a friend, or a faithful churchgoer. And when it's exposed, it counts on your disbelief. It counts on your compliance. Because silence is a shield, not for the victims, but for the abuser. And suspicion, doubt, those are tools too. Because the moment someone tries to speak the truth, the world doesn't lean in, it leans away. Do you see the conundrum this puts victims in? How then should a survivor speak the truth? If she yells, you call it anger. If she cries, you say it's just the pressure getting to her. If she repeats herself, you decide it's time for her to let it go. And all the while, the abuser is watching, knowing exactly how this will play out. He counts on your biases, your ignorance, your lack of discernment. He knows that the world has built barriers around truth, making it unnecessarily hard for someone to cry for help. In fact, he may even join in or do it himself, threatening the victims into silence, bullying them with consequences, daring them to speak the truth of what he did. And so I ask again, not because I don't know the answer, but because you need to ask yourself, when is it safe to speak the truth? After the damage is done? After the victims are gone? After the world finally decides it's willing to listen? The enemy is content with any of these because truth delayed is truth diminished. We have seen it before, stories dismissed until the victims were beyond saving. In 2024, Allison Holker, the wife of Stephen Twitch boss, spoke her truth about the struggles her husband faced. Instead of support, she was silenced. Her words met with skepticism. Her pain was minimized. It was only after Gypsy Rose Blanchard was released from prison that the world fully acknowledged the horrors she endured at the hands of her mother. For years, the narrative was simple, that she was a troubled girl who committed an unspeakable act. But once she was free, beyond the system's reach, she could finally tell her story. The truth wasn't just about a single crime. It was about a lifetime of manipulation, medical abuse, and imprisonment within her own home. And then there was Cassie Ventura. For over a decade, she was seen as the girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs, her silence mistaken for consent, her presence dismissed as the cost of loving a powerful man. Then, in November 2023, she would shatter that illusion. In a bombshell lawsuit, she accused Combs of a decade plus of physical abuse, sexual violence, and relentless control. The world, once content with the fantasy of a glamorous, high-profile romance, was now forced to reckon with reality that she had been a woman trapped, isolated, and terrorized behind closed doors. The whispers of abuse had been there all along, but when Cassie finally broke free, when she put her name to the horrors she had endured, there was no more room to doubt. It is only when the victims escape, when the damage is already done, that we begin to hear the truths buried under decades of shame and public scrutiny. But what if we had listened sooner? Could Allison's truth have saved Twitch, giving him the support he needed before it was too late? Could Gypsy's story have freed her sooner? Could Cassie and countless other women have found justice before their safety was shattered and their names dragged through the mud? When truth is ignored, lives are lost, voices are silenced, and justice is delayed. We must speak the truth in the present, not the past, and not when it's too late. So here is the truth, and here is your call. Selfishly, this must be told because it's about my child, my children, my family. My children matter, my family mattered, I matter. But there is this part of me that feels that you won't really listen if I say it that way, that you will say, I'm sorry, and keep scrolling, keep looking away. So let me say it more clearly. This story is about you too. This is not just about my family. This is about a war that has been waged against children, families, and the truth itself. There is a war on children, a war that hides in custody battles, empowers predators, and punishes the parents who speak out. It doesn't use bullets, it uses paperwork. It doesn't scream, it whispers through legal loopholes, cold courtrooms, and carefully crafted lies. It strips a mother of her voice, her resources, and her credibility, all while pretending to be neutral. And by the time the system realizes its mistake, if it ever does, the damage is done. How many more times must this story play out before we stop pretending that it isn't happening? There is a war on truth. Beyond the harm done to my child, beyond the devastation done to my home and my heart, what shakes me the most is what was done in God's name. The audacity, the mockery, the deliberate misrepresentation of our living God. How many stories have we heard of abusers who fold themselves right back into the community and the church, volunteering, serving, smiling? They perfect the sound of God but lack His Spirit. They wear the language of light like a costume. They dress the part, speak the part, perform the part, but their hearts are corrupt. Psalm 64:5 says, they say, who will see us? And they really believe that. How dare you misrepresent God to our children, to the ones we carried, to the ones we covered in prayer, to the ones we protected with our very own lives. How dare you lead astray the ignorant and the unexposed, the ones who don't yet have eyes to see or ears to discern. You are exactly what Psalm 73:11 describes. You are men who say, well, how can God know? Can the Most High have knowledge of what we do? You hide your snares in sanctuaries. You speak of wicked schemes behind pulpits and platforms, and you really think no one sees. But as cliche as it may sound, the Lord sees. The trouble is, you didn't just mock God in secret, you brought a battle to your own family. You warred against the innocent. You violated what was sacred, and you dared to do it in His name. To that, the Lord responds. You brought a battle against your family, then the Lord will win the battle that you have waged. Like Psalm 68:21 declares, because the Lord's enemies are ready for war, the Lord will crush your skulls. Every abusive thought, every manipulative word, every silenced threat, every controlling look, every time you mocked, minimized, twisted, and harmed, God saw it all. And when He responds, you will wish you had laid it all down while there was still time. When I began this letter, it was thundering and raining. And in the Word of God, thunder is rarely the end. It's the beginning. because after the thunder comes lightning, after the lightning comes hail, and after the hail comes fire. As Psalms 18:12-14 says, "From the brightness of his presence his clouds advance, hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord thundered from heaven, the voice of the Most High resounded, hailstones and coals of fire. He shot his arrows and scattered his foes. He hurled lightning and routed them." Thunder was the warning. Lightning was the exposure. Hail was the judgment. Fire was his justice. So now, you've heard the story. What will you do? Will you turn it until tomorrow's gossip, like the ones who call just to hear more or say, "Hey girl," and then go on with their day? Or will you take it as thunder, a sign that something is shifting? Let's start with this. I pray that you take a second look at who is around you. I pray you beg God for discernment to open your eyes to what was done in the dark. I pray He shows you what you have missed and gives you the courage to stop shrugging your shoulders at abuse. Because Isaiah 5:20 warns us, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil." And that is exactly what we do when we stay silent. For what can we leave our children if we don't get this right? Silence is not neutral, ignorance is not innocent, and unchecked abuse doesn't just stay. It spreads, it multiplies, it devours. If we do not expose this fire, it will keep burning. In silence, it has never protected a single child, and it never will. You've heard the thunder. Now be the lightning. Until next time, with fire, thunder, and truth. Love, Leslie.